Welcome back to the Bite-sized Professional Development Series on Assistive Technology from the LRC-South. I'm Alicia Drelick, an assistant professor at Rowan University, who will be guiding you through this series. Throughout the series, we'll explore what assistive technology is, considerations for AT and the IEP, as well as some common assistive technology tools that can be used to support students in the inclusive classroom. This is part 2 of the series, where we will look at assistive technology considerations in the IEP. We will examine both general assistive technology considerations that take place at all IEP meetings, as well as considering AT for the NJSLA or the New Jersey State Assessment. Just a quick review, the IDEA definition for assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of children with disabilities. Remember, in part 1, we explored both assistive and accessible technologies. We'll discuss both of these tools during this presentation as we leverage tools to increase access to learning for students with disabilities. Let's review some quick statistics. Based on 2020 data, there were over 7.3 million students in all public school systems who were receiving special education services. That means these students had an IEP or an individual education program. AT consideration is done for all students who are receiving special education services, and this consideration is reviewed each year annually at the IEP meeting. Based on a survey of over 17,000 students in high school, only about 1/3 of those students reported that they were using assistive technology. I believe this is a lower rate than students who should be accessing assistive technology. AT was even ranked as used lower for those students who are considered to have high incidence disabilities, who are spending most of their time in the general education classroom. So let's talk a bit about the AT consideration process and what that looks like. Generally, this is done by the IEP team. So there is typically not one person who is assigned to be the assistive technology expert. All members of the IEP team are equally responsible for assistive technology consideration. King and Allen emphasized the need for our general education teachers to really be engaged in this process, because many AT implementations happen in the general education process, and they're well aware of access issues for students with disabilities in the general education classroom. Typically, they will also be involved in implementation, data collection, and monitoring student progress of using assistive technology tools. This is even more important for districts with sparse assistive technology resources, such as rural districts. In New Jersey, you may have seen this question come up on your IEP, and this is taken from the New Jersey sample IEP, and it's featured in every IEP throughout the state. So in the special consideration section, you'll see the line that reads, consider each of the following. If considering special factors described below, the IEP team determines that the student needs a particular device or service, including an intervention, accommodation, or other program modification, to receive a free appropriate public education, the IEP team must include a statement to the effect in the appropriate section. If a factor is applicable, note as such. This is something that is verbatim on the IEP, where we consider assistive technology within the state of New Jersey. So again, this specifically says the need for assistive technology devices and services. So if this is outlined, in the IEP, it's important to review this with the IEP team each time as we go through our special considerations. Despite being considered at each annual IEP meeting, assistive technology access rates continue to be a bit lower. Some barriers for accessing AT can fall with influencing teacher factors so that AT can be considered. Some of these barriers include a lack of experience or knowledge with assistive technology, as well as a lack of knowledge of particular resources and access to those resources. Further training can be a factor, and that is both pre-service and in-service teacher training. Others can be uncertainty with assistive technology or unfamiliarity with how the assistive technology can work to support student needs. Luckily, if you're here accessing this training, you are actively fighting multiple barriers that have been identified for securing and accessing assistive technology for students. The typical assistive technology evaluation process first takes place when it is initiated by an IEP team member or a student. So again, typically a teacher, parent, related service provider initiates that a student is in need of assistive technology. An evaluation takes place, and then recommendations for tools are offered. IEP team members, including students, are trained on the device, and then we have the implementation. This is reflected upon, and then we again come back and modify recommendations or provide additional training as needed. When the AT consideration process is in place, we want to make sure that we are building capacity for assistive technology so that we can provide the supports for students. So districts should work on focusing, building team knowledge and background skills in assistive technology. Tools can be readily available, and information on built-in and accessibility features can be considered for students. All members of a student's IEP team should be involved in selecting and implementing this assistive technology plan. One way to evaluate your school or district's process is to use the quiet indicators or the quality indicators for assistive technology. The first few assistive technology quality indicators really take a look at AT consideration and the evaluation and implementation process. Indicators 1 through 3 look at how we consider needs and if we are truly doing this for all students, and the knowledge of an IEP team. An IEP team cannot effectively consider assistive technology unless they have a breadth of knowledge of assistive technology tools and the needs of their students. In indicator 2 and 3, we can look at how an assessment is taken place and how that is then documented in the IEP. It's important for assistive technology to be documented in related services as well as AT tools leveraged to support the advancement of IEP goals. They can be listed in the accommodations and modifications section as well. In indicators 4 and 5, we can look at the assistive technology implementation and then the evaluation of the effectiveness of that particular intervention. So again, we want to see IEP teams working together to support students' use of tools and reflecting on the effectiveness of that. You can access all of the quality indicators for assistive technology in the resource section of this module. When we are looking at assistive technology in the IEP, it's also important to consider the use of assistive technology and accessible technologies on the New Jersey student learning assessment. There are various accessibility systems and tools that are available for all students, including magnification, highlighting tools, and some writing tools. However, some accessibility features and some assistive technology accommodations are only available to students if they are identified in advance or listed specifically on student IEPs. Some accessibility features that can be accessed with advance notice include things like text-to-speech in math and science and advanced editing tools that can be used during free writing. Some tools can only be accessed if they are explicitly listed as accommodations on student IEPs. They include assistive technology screen readers, Braille versions of text, tactile graphics, large print, closed captions or ASL directions, the use of calculators on non-calculator identified items, word prediction, or alternative response such as speech to text, Braille response, or the use of AAC, augmentative or alternative communication devices to respond. For full information on accessibility features and the considerations for these particular tools can be found in the NJSLA Accessibility Features and Accommodations Manual that is also linked for resources for this part of the professional development series.